my wife wakes up. She goes, "What's that noise?" And I had put some pears on the front porch because I was going to dehydrate them. And she could hear a noise on the front porch. There's a 400-pound bear. And here I am, like, with no care, in my underwear, shoot the bear. Yeah, right off the front porch. Yeah, I think that's legal.
Welcome to the Wild Dispatch.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wild Dispatch. I'm Robin and I'm back with more skills and stories from the wild. Almost lost my train of thought there mid-sentence. We have a fantastic episode today. This one is related to the previous episode. So last interview episode that we did was with John Anderson, the game warden from Nevada. Fantastic conversation. And he had some great stories about his life, some of the incredible busts that he's done, but also some of his memories growing up and the lessons that he learned with his dad. Now, we have his dad today. So, Wild Mountain Man Dan is what he usually goes by. He is an incredible character, a man who has not only an immense amount of skill, but also a huge heart, and he has so much love and time to give to the world. He's a real entertainer too, so I'm really excited to share this episode with you today. We had a fantastic conversation. We talked about his life, his experiences, growing up as someone who didn't actually live in the wilderness or wasn't a hunting person before, learning all those skills, learning some of the harder lessons that can come with that, and a bunch of other stuff too. So we're going to get to that episode any second now. But first, if you are new to this podcast, then welcome. It's lovely to have you here. Make sure that you subscribe or follow or tap that button. That means that you are always up to date with the latest episodes that are coming through. If you are a returning guest, then welcome back. It would be amazing if you could leave a positive review. It is something that really, I'm harping on about it a lot at the moment, but those 5-star reviews, for everyone who has already given one, thank you, thank you, thank you. It makes such a difference to the number of people who see this podcast. It's really helping the thing to grow when people are looking for wilderness-based entertainment or podcasts or stories. Then it means that the Wild Dispatch comes up higher up in the rankings, and yeah, it gets out there. This has a knock-on effect of meaning that I get to have a bit more presence in this world and makes my life easier. If I need to get hold of people, it makes my life so much easier. I mean, I don't even have to reach out to people so much these days. People come to me, which is because of the people who are helping to push this thing out into the world. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Right. I think that's everything for now. Here's Wild Mountain Man Dan.
It's plugged in.
Okay, good.
I think
Headphones
Amanda,
we've sorted out.
We're plugged in. He just wants to know if it's going to go out or the batteries die. Or everything's great, she said.
Everything's perfect. Okay, yeah. Perfect. And I think we're golden. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Robin. This is going to be fun.
I'm excited to get you here, man. We've been talking for a little while, and I've heard some great stories already. So I'm hoping that we can summon some of those back up. That's for sure. I'm sure there's many other ones too.
Yeah.
I know from some of the pictures you sent me, you've been off with family doing some exciting hunts. I think, did you go elk hunting? Was that right?
Yeah. So my son, John, on TV this week on Nevada Wild Animal Planet TV show, he's a lead game warden. His son was miraculously able to get a elk permit for northern Nevada just within 3 or 4 days of season. And so my son John said, "Hey, come on down." And so we had just the most greatest time ever And his daughter at the same time had a big mule deer hunt that she was going on. And so a neighbor took her, and I took my grandson with my son. But we went right into the unbelievable tops of the mountains in Nevada with the snow and like 13 degrees out. And we're sitting there shivering, and we're literally glassing like 5 miles away looking for elk in this wonderful, beautiful scenery. And all of a sudden we're seeing elk. Okay, now what do? We got to back up, go all the way down the mountain, come up another canyon and stuff. So every day we saw elk. But, just family, I raised my kids off grid, and they enjoy that. And now I have one that just graduated to Pentagon. One's a game warden. One's a professional hunter, hiker, trapper. I have 8 kids.
Wow.
But spending time with them in the woods, telling stories with that big goal in mind. We're going to get a monster bull for my 13-year-old grandson, and 5 days later, 500 yards, shoots the elk through the heart at 500 yards.
Wow.
The day before,
that's impressive.
He's 13 years old. He shot a coyote at 400 yards.
Wow.
But, yeah.
So how
much
far away was
beautiful.
the bull? How far away was the bull when you saw it? You said you were glassing really far away. Was that like the first one that you saw that was a good one, or did you have a couple of opportunities before that didn't quite work out?
So many beautiful stories. We can get a lot of them in.
Yeah.
But we saw bulls every day.
Yeah.
At one day, we were on a hilltop, and my son looked over the side to another mountainside. He said it was like the whole mountain was moving. They saw 700 elk, he estimated. And he's a game warden. He's pretty good at counting. 700 elk, but it was on private land. So after we came out of there, we went up to the owner. He wasn't home. We got a message. We'd like to hunt there, blah, blah, blah. We didn't get that message till 4 days later. Yes, you can, on the last day of the hunt. But yeah, so, we're glassing these mountaintops, and we're 5 miles away, and we're trying to work our way up to them. So on this one hunt we were on, we're right next to private property, and we're very respectful of land ownership, right? And we were able to park there and go up the mountains for miles and come back. Well, I got back early, and there was a fellow there saying, well, you can't go through this gate. We thought we're in trouble. And all of a sudden I said, wow, this is really great that you're, patrolling and taking care of the land. And my grandson has a tag. That came to be one of the most brilliant things. He goes, well, I know where there's an elk, or know where there's a few elk. They're right in the lowlands, not snow and stuff. And he basically told us where some were. It took us 4 or 5 hours to find them, and he was glassing. And we finally seen him from up on top of the road, set my son and grandson down for this beautiful trip, coming in closer and closer and closer to these elk. But they couldn't see them the whole time. We're like, trying to focus in on where they're at.
Yeah.
And they get up and they take off. They're only 100 yards away, but can't see them. They're down a ravine. And when they popped up at 500 yards, we're glassing and we're watching. All of a sudden, we see this poof of smoke. And then, crack! Oh, my goodness. So good. Yeah. Elk goes down, gets up, shoots it again right through the heart. A 500 yards, 13-year-old kid.
Yeah, that's impressive, I've got to say. It's also, it amazes me for whatever reputation, I guess, hunting has in general, that people are usually quite secretive about their spots and their opportunities.
Yeah,
the number of times I've just started chatting with people who I see out in the boonies, the number of times people are like, oh yeah, you know what? Like, I'll give you a hand. Here's a secret. Here's a little place that you can go. And the number of animals I've managed to get just from starting a conversation with people, it's pretty amazing how
comes around, goes around, huh?
How friendly and helpful people can be. Yeah, it's not all the tradition that people, or the way people think it actually is.
So you can go elk hunting and deer hunting and all this hunting, but a lot of times they should change it to elk hiking and deer hiking. And maybe that's the whole goal, to get out in nature and experience, like, I'm really sad for people that live in an apartment and they see a TV and they see walls and they live with paint fumes. And I'm off grid for 36 years, and I'm almost 71, and I'll take anybody on. I'll run faster and hike and jump. And I don't know if you've seen some of my internet stuff, but yeah,
Yeah.
I like being wild and crazy because I can. I'm pretty good health.
Yeah, I've watched I watched some videos over the past
Yeah,
few weeks.
yeah,
I've been
right.
entertained. Another thing as well I noticed, and please take this with in every sense of positivity. There is a streak of silliness about you that I've noticed in some of your videos. You're not afraid to laugh at the situation or doing something silly, or laugh at yourself as well.
I want to get people off the couch, you know?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
One of my famous sayings is too, I don't want to change your oil. I want to change the whole world. With a smile and a hug. I'm also a professional hugger. So here it goes. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Received with open arms.
But yeah, so years ago, my grandfathers on both of my sides from history, one shot for the Washington Civilian Corps in the national championships every year. Oh, he was so into marksmanship and targets that in 1928 he got the telegram that his daughter, my mom, was born while he was at Camp Perry, Ohio, shooting in the national competitions, right? So
Wow.
yeah, you got to imagine my grandma's pregnant with my mom. He goes, "Hey, I'm going to go on a shooting competition. I'll see you in about 3 weeks." And then my mom was born, and he gets the telegram. Yeah, and he did that for like 6 years in a row, and then he passed away. But he's on I think it's called Soldier of Marathon Trophy with his team for like 6 years in a row at Camp Perry, Ohio, 20s and
Wow.
30s. And then my dad
Wow.
on my grandpa on my dad's side, he was a little bit like a Robin Hood. He painted, but during the Depression, he would go out and he would hunt, and he would bring food in for all the community. So maybe that was legal, maybe not, but they lived way up in the mountains, and so a lot of
Yeah.
hunting. But it skipped my mom's and my dad's generation. Like they went hunting once, I know. And anyway,
Really?
my mom fell down and scared the deer away, and yeah. But my dad was like the president of the Washington State Chefs Association and the president of the Senior Chefs of America, and he was inducted into the National Chefs Hall of Fame with Julia Childs in 1999. Yep.
You've tweaked my interest with two questions I wanted to ask you, which is
Okay.
one is, did you grow up with hunting, which you're answering? It doesn't really sound like that's what was kind of part of your upbringing necessarily with your
About
parents.
about about 4 or 5 years old, we would go to Grandma's house,
Okay.
and we would see this behind the door, and we
And
weren't allowed to
what's
touch
that?
it.
That
This
what
is
kind of
my
rifle is that?
grandfather's 30-30 Winchester octagon barrel. It's like the prize of the world, like John Wayne. But this is what we saw behind the door. But we weren't allowed to touch it. But we could open the door and look at it for a second. But this is, like 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. This is what really sparked my interest. Plus, my grandparents also had a museum. Arrowheads in the museum, guns in the museum, deer heads in the museum. Uh, So that's my earlier memories. Um,
I'm guessing that rifle that was propped up behind a door was probably loaded, ready in case something walked past nearby, would be
oh
my
yeah,
guess, which is why you're definitely not supposed to be touching it.
yeah, yeah.
um,
And we actually shot that gun after my grandfather died. About 10 years after he died, my dad says, "Let's go shoot that gun." And he noticed there was a bullet in it. And when we shot the bullet, the brass actually came apart. We had to clean it and cut that away.
really?
But yeah, I killed a bear in my front yard last year. So many different tangents, right? With that gun, because it's such a close yard, I got a lot of apple trees.
Yes.
And my wife wakes up, she goes, "What's that noise?" And I had put some pears on the front porch because I was going to dehydrate them. And she could hear a noise on the front porch. There's a 400-pound bear. And here I am, like, with no care, in my underwear, shoot the bear. Yeah, right off the front porch. Yeah, I think that's legal. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I'm sure it is. What? So, what did you do with the bear meat? Like, I guess, how close
Oh,
were you?
man. Uh, Within 50 feet,
Okay.
and
Did it?
it's kind of running, and
It
I shot it
ran.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I shot it right through the heart. Dropped it. It was so big. I've probably shot 20 bears in the past, and my son Ian's probably shot another 30 bears. I probably shot 4 elk and maybe 40 deer. But yeah, this was a big one. Me and my wife both try to get it in the truck. We can't even get the shoulders and the head off the ground. We had to literally tie a rope around its front legs and drag it up on the hill and drag it up to skin it. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was over 300 something. Pretty
Wow.
old bear.
So what did you do with the meat? What's your favorite thing that you like to do with bear meat?
So my brother, he has a really nice meat shop, and he does the
Okay.
most excellent like summer sausages, regular sausages, and then I'll make jerky out of it. I'll eat a lot of steaks and I'll eat bear liver or bear stew, but generally I'm either grinding it, but it's not as
Hmm.
many steaks. I usually do other things with it, jerky and sausages and stuff. But
Do you?
I guess the nicest part about bear meat is it's very lean meat. I got 38 quarts of bear fat off that bear.
Oh, you did.
30, you know how much of meat you got? That's like 4+ gallons.
Okay, so it's
But
very
the meat's,
fatty.
the fats on the outside are
Yeah.
huge layer, 3 or 4 inches of fat. But the meat's very lean. And so yeah, it's nice to cook it with a little bit of bacon or something to give it some fat.
Yeah, yeah. I have a
Yeah.
recipe that I love doing. I mean, so the first animal that I got in the US when I moved here 10 years ago or so, maybe it was a bit less than that, because I started hunting after a few years of being here, because I wasn't
Hmm.
allowed to, being not originally from America early on.
Oh,
So yeah, that was definitely a popular recipe that I discovered, was doing like a porcini pie with bacon and Guinness, I think, like all
oh
mixed
yeah.
together, cooked in a slow cooker for,
Yeah.
8, 10 hours.
Yeah, it's got all the
Can't beat it.
flavors going there.
Oh,
Some
so good.
oregano and some thyme and stuff. So, yeah, so I was in the chef business too. I taught restaurant training actually after many years and was very successful at teaching.
So that was a
Um,
question I wanted to ask you. It's like a two-part question, because when we
mhm.
spoke last, you told me that you didn't really, I don't know, you didn't really get along that well in school. So, so then I'm
Yeah.
curious. I'm
How did I
curious.
become a school teacher?
Well, it's like that's a big change, right? Like, because I mean, from personal experience, I didn't have a great time in school,
Yeah.
and there was a bit of trauma, I guess, in some level there. So I can imagine going back there and then being in a teaching environment again. Did that kind of bring up any memories or any feelings that
Oh
you were
man.
back in
I tell
the
you,
back in? Yeah, go
kids
on.
are bored to death. In school, I'm telling you, they're bored to death. If you could teach them something that they want to know, but guide them along the path,
Yeah.
that's what education should be. And internships and bringing in guest speakers. But yeah, in the ninth grade, I had a D and a D and a D and a D and a D plus, and I think a D plus or a D. I had two teachers tell me, "We like you. We're going to give you a D." So what would my grade point average would have been? It was a 1.67 in the ninth grade. I'm getting ready to go to high school with a 1.67, and my mom and dad go, "Well, uh, you might want to take general math over again." So I took all beginning classes, and when I graduated, I had an A in math. But that was still 1 + 1 = 2. I have a hard time with subtraction. So how did I go from that to being the Washington State Vocational Teacher of the Year for the whole state of Washington?
Yeah.
You know, I tell you, I love kids. I love seeing the excitement on their face, and it's got to be hands-on. Okay, yeah. So it was restaurant training class, and we actually prepared the food for breakfast and the lunch, and we catered. We catered to governor's inauguration ball. We were asked to do so many things because everybody thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I even got to be on a school board magazine one year about like best classes in the nation. But like 4 or 5 kids were working on a cake, and 4 or 5 kids working on fresh bread, and 3 or 4 kids that were being management, being sous chefs and assistants, and I just sit back in my chair and just kind of outlined, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? And then, I would call a couple men, hey, let's conference on where you're at and where you're going. They did all the work and they got all the credit. And when they get credit for something that they made, especially by their peers, like strawberry shortcake and shrimp fettuccine and stuff and all this stuff. Yeah, greatest move of my life, teaching stuff I liked. And I did that for 20 years.
Yeah.
And along with that, I didn't stop there. I started teaching kids about, it's like a testimony on what's important to you, or speeches. And then we entered competitions for the Vocational Skills of America, or they changed it to Skills USA. I had kids that were in a little school of maybe 3 or 4 seniors. They were national vice presidents for the nation, just to light that spark and drive and, get them to be, who do you want to be? What do you want to be? And then I didn't care about class sometimes. I say, what do you want to know? Let's talk about anything you want to know within limits.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So that was fun. It was just fun.
Yeah, right. Adapting to what sparks people's imaginations and sparks their excitement, and knowing that that's the way to actually get motivation. That's such a good observation. Maybe is that something you experienced personally when you were in school then? Like you struggled with things that weren't interesting? Yeah.
Yeah. And, hey, I was working on what I wanted to work on, arrowheads and shelters and stuff. And I was out the window looking at birds saying, oh, look at that bird. I can't hardly see it, but it's a flicker. I know it's a flicker, how it flies. That's a flicker. Oh, there it goes, Yeah, that was my school.
That's exactly like me as well.
Yeah. And, I've heard that in Germany, they go to 9th grade with all their skills. And at 9th grade, they make a choice. I hope this is true. I heard it. That they make a choice of what they want to be, or at least a couple things. And they actually put them into industry with somebody like in the 9th, 10th grade, and they get to work with that. And then they come back to school, and then they go back out. And that's the way it should be. Get them involved in something that they want, and they'll outperform anybody at that point.
I agree. And it's often like so much, you can only go so much with direct tuition, right? You then need to apply it to something real within a real life situation. Theory only works to a certain extent, right? It's only once you then start doing the grind in whatever environment it is that you've chosen, then you really learn if that's what you want to do as well, right?
Yeah. So the opposite of that would be give them some kind of game and just let them play with the game, and they're beating people up or they're racing cars. Maybe there's a spot for that. But for my kids, they milked goats, they chopped firewood, they worked hard. They learned about how to communicate with people and emotions and struggles. And, not every day was perfect. And they did it the hard way. But, I just had one of my boys retire from the Pentagon.
Yeah.
And one of my boys is the game warden of the year in Nevada. And one of my daughters is like top scientists in the country under 40 with 2 major awards. It's like on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And that came from having nothing and being inventive and having to create all the scenarios that they went through when they were younger.
I guess if you give them the tools to be able to figure that stuff out, then that's the important thing, right? I'm curious, talking of childhood then, you're talking about napping arrowheads and all those kinds of things, and maybe that being a bit of a distraction from conventional teaching. When did that begin? Can you remember the first time that you started napping arrowheads? Like what inspired you to do that?
So my grandfather's rifle, they had museums with arrowheads in it, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I was totally in that. Something happened in my brain, something happened in my heart, my spirit that said, I got to have this. I don't know what it is. I got to have it. I got to know more. I need this. It's like passionately involved. I'm only 7 years old. And so we go arrowhead hunting and rock hunting with grandma and grandpa and my dad and mom. And I can remember the instant that all of a sudden grandma picks up the most beautiful arrowhead that was white. It was thin, beautifully flaked, sharp, and the wings on it were so perfect on the Columbia River. They call them gem points. So nice. But the very, very tip, the tip had broken off. It's pretty common to not find them, perfect. And so
Yes.
everybody gathered around and they want to see this most beautiful arrowhead that grandma ever found. And here I'm about 10 feet away and all the adults are gathered around. Ooh, that's the greatest thing, oh man. And then they're like, they're off. They want to find one. So they're inspired to go get more. So I had been given a pocket knife from my dad like a year earlier. And I thought I was pretty good. I was carving all the time. So I said, Grandma, can I look at that arrowhead? She goes, yeah, you can look at it. And I sat down and I put it on my knee and I took my pocket knife out and I chipped the top of it. Okay, we're going to stop right there. You don't give a 7-year-old kid with a pocket knife an arrowhead, an archaeological specimen, and say, ooh, I'm going to see if I can make it better. You don't do that. So anyway, I headed it back to Grandma and she goes, oh, and I can still see her facial expressions. They're kind of mixed between, oh, ah, ah. And then they settle down a little bit. Oh, that looks nice. What could she say? And everybody gathered around. What's going on? And so within a couple of minutes, I was like the hero. And I don't know if they were tricking me or nothing. And I don't know what happened to that arrowhead, but that changed my life. I made like 10 arrowheads that day, and and they're only that big. I don't know if you see that. Like,
Yeah.
because that's all I could figure out. I'm making chips with my pocket knife. That's all I could do. Within a month, I'd made 100 arrowheads with my pocket knife, and then I switched. Oh, I think I'll take a nail and put it in a broomstick, and yeah. So I made like 500 arrowheads within a couple of months. I made 1,000 arrowheads within a year or so. I probably made 50,000 now.
Wow. Were you then, I mean, you made these arrowheads. How long was it before you were like, I need to make arrows and bows and do all of that stuff?
Within 6 months. So I'd already be building my own shelters. They call them shelters. We call them forts. I even had one that had a basement and 5 levels, and then it had a ladder going up to a crow's nest. But I would take sticks, try to modify them with shoestrings and stuff, and make arrows. Well, we got really good, but we got kind of scary. Here's a quote I made up this morning. Don't test your limits. Know your limits through life experiences. Yeah, know your limits. Anyway, so we're shooting these arrows straight up in the air, and then they would disappear, and we would run, and then shoot. And I remember one of the arrows came down and hit my neighbors right in the trailer and stuck down. They were playing cards, and this arrow stuck. Yeah, it was a steel fishing rod pole, and yeah, that was not a good thing. I learned a lot of lessons from that.
What did they do?
I don't remember that part. Only remember the good stuff. That's one of the secrets to life. Oh, and another thing, too. When you grow old and gray and you start losing your memory, you can die of a clear conscience.
Yeah.
Well, that might be true.
I'm gonna hope for the best.
Yeah. But I can remember hunting little birds with slingshots. We were so good. We could shoot the flies off a wall at 10 feet away with slingshots. Wow. Ooh, we were so accurate. Yeah, I shot a bird out of the top of a tree one time. Sorry, bird. Well, I killed a lot of birds. But yeah, I shot this robin out of the top of a tree, probably 40 yards away with a slingshot.
Yeah.
And then, we come across this dead skunk on the road, right? So, this is so exciting. Our first big animal kill. Don't give like 8 and 10-year-old kids, 3 brothers, the chance of skinning a skunk. Oh my goodness. I pulled one way, my brother pulls one way, and it sprayed us. It was dead and still sprayed us.
Wow.
I'll never forget that. Yeah, that was my first skinning experience with a skunk.
I'm curious. You made me think with the birds story that you were saying about running around being a little hooligan shooting lots of tiny birds. I kind of had the same experience when I was young with an air rifle. And I remember really distinctly there was this moment. First of all, you don't think about the consequences of your actions, right? You're not thinking about the reality that it's just a game. It's just I want to hit the thing, and you don't hit it very often. And then when you do, I remember I think it was a crow. I was in England, and I had an air rifle, and I shot this crow. And to my amazement, it actually dropped. But the thing that really stuck with me is that another crow then dropped down and was kind of trying to help it or assist it. And that was like a real hard reality moment for me where I was like, oh, that's like its partner. and it didn't want to go away. And then it saw me like cocking my air rifle again, and then was kind of reluctantly flying away. It didn't take many lessons like that to start realizing the
Mhm.
consequences of actions when you're younger, right?
Yeah, we grow up and we learn. Um, so there's a fellow that lives down the road from me. He's passed away now, but he had
Yeah.
goats and geese and chickens and a big dog. And he was a hermit. He didn't even come out of nowhere. There wasn't even a road to his house. He lived on a trail in a cabin. My kids used to go down there and hang out with him just because he was so interesting. One
Yeah.
day I went down there and he was crying, literally crying. He had butchered a goat, a male goat, and the female had had a baby, and he was performing CPR on the baby, trying to bring it back to life, and crying. What is what an odd scenario when he
Yeah.
kills the father for me and the mother is born and he's doing CPR and he's crying. I've never seen a man cry like that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
And he couldn't save it. But yeah, it took a lot of years for me to realize that, uh, whatever, God or something has put these animals for our use and we need to manage them. And I'm sure glad one of my sons is a game warden to be able to see that whole scenario follow through with the way he was growing up. And yeah, uh, and
It's interesting. Go
my
on.
one son, he says he's going to harvest an animal, and he really does. He harvests animals. He doesn't use the word shooting or killing or something anymore. There's always a place for that, but uh, yeah, emphasize on just being kind to nature.
Yes. Respecting and
Hmm.
understanding as well that you're part of something and it can be brutal. And that's the thing I think people often find difficult is that there's like, can be simultaneously such brutality and such love
Hmm.
at the same time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Another story that goes with that, maybe people don't talk about it now, but I think it's so relevant. The little red hen, or I think it's a red hen, and she's baking bread, and everybody wants bread. But she asked them, "Oh, can you help me harvest? I'm going to plant the grain. Oh, we're busy. Can you help me weed? Can you help me water? Can you help me harvest the grain?" And now we have to make into like the chaff, and then she has to grind it. And every time she does a step, they're not there. And she asks them all for help. But when that bread hits the windowsill, oh, they're there. Oh, man, they're there. And how much of a part of life do we take in now? Like this morning, I got chickens. I got to feed the chickens. And I had elk heart and chanterelle mushrooms for breakfast that I picked them and harvested.
Great.
And how much of our labor goes into paying other people to do the dirty work? And you know, how much of
Yeah.
that should we, take on upon ourselves?
It's that
You know?
balance, isn't it? It's actually
Yeah.
interesting. My wife said just something similar to that yesterday evening, where she was kind of curious, I guess, like amusingly observing how much time we spend preparing food and that whole kind of process. And that's not even
Yeah.
taking into account the foraging and the hunting and the fishing and all those things that we do. Mostly I do, to be honest. But, and the farming as well. She spends a huge amount of time growing
Yeah.
vegetables as well. It's such a commitment, right? It's such a lot of time, but it's so much healthier than convenience, right? And hopefully in the long run, it's good for us. It's the thing that makes the difference. What's that? You're
Yeah.
holding up looks
So,
like a framed, is it a certificate or what is that?
so I'm an artist. I'm
Wow.
an
Okay.
arrowhead maker, and yeah, I've studied a lot about different kinds, but I love the Northwest Coast natives. I love a lot of the native works, and a lot of my brain comes from those thoughts and those ideas from a long time ago on how, we were part of nature. You didn't own the land, you were maybe its children, that whole idea.
Yeah.
Um, so back to your questions before, Arrowheads has kind of not driven my life, but passionately guided me along the way of being a pretty good arrowhead maker or knife maker or chipping stones, and I hang out with the best of them and have a blast. And I teach at probably 7 or 8 gatherings across the nation. And that I was just, if you've never gone to a gathering, an ancient skill gathering, please look up ancient skill gatherings.
Yes.
It's where I want to be till the day I'm dead. Bury me at one, whatever. But I might get 500 hugs a day, and people
Well,
come running up, and just the students I get from 4 years old to 84 years old, they're so grateful. And when you see that light come on, where they finally get it on how to make a flake, and they can make another flake. And in a one-day experience, they make an arrowhead almost every time. It's so cool. It puts them back thousands of years, and then they feel like now they're responsible to feed their family with this, and they got to make an arrow, and they got to make a bow, and they got to use sinew and tree pitch and turkey feathers. And
yeah. It's interesting. You're clearly a big part of the wilderness skills community, certainly at least in that area. I'm curious because I mean I'm definitely due to come visit one of these community events sometimes soon. That's for sure. Maybe next year when they will start rolling out again.
Sure.
But the question I was going to ask you is, when did that start? Has it always been? I mean, apart from, the beginning of humanity, but I mean, these events, was there a kind of time that they were happening long ago, like when you were first interested in this stuff, or is it something that's kind of rolled out more in the last decade or two?
So I think in Europe it started earlier with the caveman type idea, and a lot of archaeologists there. So in my lifetime, the muzzleloaders were a big part of the early gatherings, where they had rendezvous, and they were big famous rendezvous, and I've been to a lot of them. There's probably 50 or 75 rendezvous on here I've been to, mountain men stuff, and 50 gatherings probably within the last 10 years.
And what's that you're holding there? Is that a dream catcher or what?
Yeah, it's a display with some Native American signals,
Okay.
But each one of these represents, a whole week being at a mountain men rendezvous. These are all mountain men rendezvous. These are, and they had to cast medallions.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, so these were great, and they were all over the country, but mostly in the West.
Okay.
So I did a lot of mountain men rendezvous. And I started building guns like this when I was like 19 years old. And this
Look at that.
Yeah. So it's I don't know if you can see it, 75 caliber smoothbore trade rifle. And you can tell by the dragon here, a flintlock. This is how I've shot a lot of my animals too.
Wow. Is that walnut as well? It's beautiful wood.
So it's beautiful. And look at that. And look at this.
Do you know what kind of wood that is? I'm trying to figure that out.
Yes, I do, because I cut it out of the tree. This is called, it's either tiger stripe maple, fiddle maple, guitar maple, figure maple. They have bird's eye maple and stuff, but you can see the lines in that. Isn't that cool?
It's stunning. It's stunning.
So I learned from some real good gun makers when earlier in my youth, met them at the rendezvous. The mountain men rendezvous. Al Hunkler, Ted Fellows, they were pretty big names back then. Anyway, so as time went on, I could drive further and further away from home. I knew about rabbit stick when it first started, but I couldn't make it. I was busy raising, 6, 8 kids earlier.
Yeah.
So I started going to, Glass Buttes Nap-In was before rendezvous. I met Jim Riggs. If you've ever heard of that name, he's like the number one man in the world that's starting a lot of the gatherings. Jim Riggs out of Oregon. And then David Holliday, Dave Westcott, Larry Dean Olson was a big part of my life. I think at 13 years old, I had his book, and I was reading it from cover to cover. But I couldn't go to Rabbit Stick until 2014, which is a long, like 10, 11 years more ago.
Yeah.
Well, then I got to meet Larry Dean Olson. And then,
amazing.
So that's hanging out with those people at the gatherings. it all of a sudden became my heaven, the place I wanted to be.
Well, do you remember anything about your conversation with Larry Dean Olson? The reason I ask is I actually was lucky enough to just interview Nathan Olson after he won Alone, and
Yeah.
we had a good chat about his memories of his father. But I'm wondering if you managed to talk about anything that you remember.
So Luke Olson's a friend of mine too, because he goes to a
Okay.
lot of gatherings. Yeah. And I've actually met Larry's sister and a lot of their family. So it was very briefly. I got to hang out with him. I enjoyed his spirit of all those years. He was near death when I actually got to meet him. Basically in a chair, couldn't move around a lot, but just his spirit and his knowledge and how he wanted so bad for people to know what he knew. It's like the saying, I like that you like what I like, and so he loved it. I love that you love what I love. He was so into helping people, teaching people, and just the spirit about him was so kind and easy to listen to. And that's about all I really know, except reading his books. I learned
Yeah.
more about him. But
Yeah, you
yeah,
start to feel like you know someone
um,
more, right, when you read their writing.
yeah. Um,
So this, go on, what were you going to say?
well, so through being at the gatherings for years, I got to meet a lot of people on the Alone Show. And maybe I've met Nathan and maybe not, but I've met Luke and his father and stuff. But I probably have 20 good friends, some like super good friends that we talk all the time that have been on the show. It's been one of my goals forever. I'm still trying for it, but it's pretty tough to get on there. And
Yeah.
there's other projects I'm working on. But yeah, just rubbing shoulders with those. I don't know. Like there aren't people that are more important, but there are people that are more uh, spiritually in tune with where I want to be and where I want to go, and their knowledge. I want their knowledge
Yes.
very bad, and how, why, where, why. I like the one why. That's
Me too.
yeah,
Me too.
yeah. It's one of the best.
I'm curious then, the alone experience is something that also intrigues me, and I have a lot of respect for anyone who first of all is able to get selected and then goes and does the experience. I mean, hats off. It's
Yeah.
one of the few survival shows that I really think is amazing. That's not to poo-poo any other show, but it for the same way it floats my boat. I think it feels
It's
really
the most
authentic. Exactly.
realistic,
Exactly.
passionately realistic. Yeah.
So I'm curious if you've been applying and you've been working towards this goal of getting on Alone. You strike me as someone who is very extroverted, a hug lover. I'm also very extroverted myself. Have you done many trips where you're off on your own in the wilderness for a long time? Because that's the thing that I feel would be, amongst a lack of skills in many departments for me, but I think that
Yeah.
could be, it's a mental challenge, which I'm not sure that I've fully tested yet.
So last year, and maybe it was a year and a half ago, I went to the gathering that was either Between the Rivers or Fall Camp.
Okay.
I think it was Between the Rivers. Lynx, her name is Lynx, and I think she's from Norway, and she
Yeah.
was putting together another outdoor survival caveman Lithica adventure. And so, oh man, I'm in. Whatever, I'm going. So I was first on the list and so excited. And we got about 6 months to prepare, and I think I brain tanned 14 deer hides and elk hides, made extra arrowheads and knives, but when you get right down to it, um, you could only carry pretty much what you could carry on your back. So this was one of
Right.
my coats I made. So this is like a caveman adventure. This is lightweight. You can get it soaking wet and wring it out and hang it up. It won't really burn. It'll kind of melt, but it's a sheep fleece that's been
Okay.
felted. So it's
Wow.
kind of like, it's faster than brain tan. This is some brain tan. Um,
Okay.
but you don't kill the animal. the animal in its lifetime might give you, if it's an 18-year-old animal, maybe you'll get 16 hides out of it.
Amazing.
But look at it. Isn't that cool? This
Yeah.
is out of, and it's a sheep. It's one sheep. It's been sheared, and you lay it down on a flat surface, and you put some hot water and some little soap on it, and you work it. But you only work one side of it, and that mats it up pretty tight
And it
into,
creates that fleece.
yeah. So this
Amazing.
is one side. This is the other side.
And it's
So anyway,
kind of looser.
this was the jacket I wore, and we were gone for a month. This is lightly felted. This is my bed. But you see
Wow.
how light this is? It's pretty
Yeah.
good size, but it can go.
Can compress down quite small.
Yeah, yeah. So
It's
so this is my bed.
Did you do something I'm curious about is the treatment process? I'm imagining you didn't treat it too much, because someone told me once that as soon as you start trying to excessively clean the fleece, you're going to lose a lot of the goodness that keeps it from getting wet and soaking up moisture and all those kinds of things.
So there is a lanolin in it, and you got to put hot water on it to have it start setting and working with the soap. And after
Okay.
that, I probably wash it once, but I think the properties that it has is gonna stay that way for quite a while, because lanolin
Yeah.
is really like a thick waxy material, and it kind of stays on there pretty well.
Okay.
But the thing of this trip, I wanted to talk about that. Um, it changes you if you're with a small group of people. First off, the lone show, you get 10 things, right?
Yes.
You don't get nothing unless okay, you start with a rock and a stick and a dead thing. Okay, what's your other choices? A rock and a stick and a dead thing. What can you do with these rocks? What are you going to do with these sticks? And what can you do with these dead things? You can make pemmican, you can make bows and arrows, sinews and feathers and stuff. And we got 6 months to prepare. And when we went out, most all of us had too much weight, and we had to condense down. And the idea was to live pretty much like cavemen. And we learned that the sun is so important. When the sun comes up, you have light. Duh. And the sun goes down, you don't have light. Duh. That's my initials, DA. But, in the preparation, getting ready for it to be dark, what are you going to do? What does your shelter look like? Are you going to be warm? And every day we would go through these scenarios of, I've got to make more arrows because I've lost them, and how much light do you have? And we actually used a couple of trees as a clock in our main camp. And when the sun hit this tree, or I had to imagine sometimes when it was snowing that the sun's there, we would gather our food. We had like 3 or 4 hours to gather food, and then we appointed who the cooks were going to be. They had to start cooking at this time, and we ate on this tree. But that was so good for our internal clock of slowing down. No phones, no clocks other than that. But communication got real good. I mean, we had men's talks about stuff, and the ladies had talks about stuff, and yeah.
How many
Going.
people were in the community, would you say?
I think there was 9 of us.
Wow.
Yeah, Lynx, a couple people from California, Sandpoint. There were some people, but we grew pretty close.
Yeah.
It was so good. And one of my best memories. It sounds odd, and it's kind of weird that I say it, but when we came out, a couple of us went for pancake breakfast. Couldn't eat it. Oh man, it's so sugary. I could not eat it because we're eating pemmican and dandelions forever. But the weirdest thing is, I could get in the truck and everything's fine. Well, I got out of the truck, I stepped on the concrete, and it sent like these weird messages through me. That was like, ooh, rock, go forever. It's like, and I'm looking at all this concrete and steel and glass. We were so far from that it really emotionally kind of shook me about how we have, so far away from what really life is about and what we need to survive. We need some water, we need some people, and
Yeah.
some food.
Yeah. And how long humans have been living in the way that you were compared to how long we had been
Yeah.
living the way we are now, and how fast the change that is.
Oh man, what? If you think about if you maybe what 20,000 years ago versus 1,000 years ago, or even
Yeah.
200 years ago.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's pretty
So
wild.
so I live off grid for a reason, and my reason is I'm pretty healthy, and my heart's good, and I drink from my own wells, and I harvest. I have 60 fruit trees, and I have lots of gardens and chickens, and yeah, I'll take anybody on. Like not fight them, but I'll wrestle them. You know,
Yeah. 400-pound bear, no problem on the porch.
That's the good stuff.
So I wanted to ask you about your
Uh-huh.
homestead. When did that begin? Was that something that you and your wife did before having kids? Like was it a while ago or?
So here's some other things too. Like you have these visions of what your life might be like. After a certain age, you have goals and stuff. Well, when you marry someone or you're with somebody, they might have their own visions of where their life looks to look like. And as you work these things out, sometimes they don't work out. Sometimes they break apart.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Over the river and through the woods to the outhouse we go is a song we used to sing. Over the river and through the woods to the outhouse we go. At midnight, the candle goes out. It's dark and it's snowing, it's raining. Yeah, so I lost a couple of wives, I think, because of some of that.
Yeah.
Now I'm married to the most wonderful person in the world, and she's from Samoa, and she grew up
Wow.
like that.
Okay.
Her dad made his own fish nets and carved his own fishing hooks, and they worked hard or they died. They had gardens and they had palm trees and coconuts and bananas, and anyway, so yeah,
And that was in Samoa, was it?
yeah, yeah.
That's amazing.
So yeah, growing up, I'm a hunter. I'm making arrowheads. I'm doing all these craziness. I knew that that's what my life. I wanted that really bad. And
Mm.
for a while, I lived in 10 different houses and just kind of quick. I found a piece of property that's way up in the mountains. I saw a herd of elk on the property. There was salmon in the stream, and it was 5 acres for $10,000.
Wow.
I I literally the house had burnt down. I went to town. I found out it was $10,000 and said I'd buy it. So then I went home and said, "Dear, I just spent $10,000 on a piece of property." You what? Anyway, best thing I ever did. Yeah, so I had to start from scratch by redoing a well, and then I made another well, and then I made another well. And those are all cement blocked and solid, and they're going to produce fresh water forever.
Yeah.
And I built a root cellar out of stone. It took 5.5 years. That's my refrigerator. I planted the fruit trees.
How long
Lots of
ago
work.
did you plant the fruit trees?
About 34 years ago.
Wow. So
So
there.
I have so much fruit that basically all the animals want to come over and see what I got. You know,
I can
along with
imagine.
the predators, the possums and the raccoons and the coyotes and the skunks and all the birds. They all got to see what that is. And my chickens, they go ah. You know?
I'm guessing you've lost a few chickens along the
I
way.
lost 50 of them 1 6-month period, but that was a cougar and everything else. Yeah.
Wow.
But anyway,
So what do
hard
you
work. Hard work
go
is a
on?
blessing. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you do with all that fruit then? Do you make cider, or do you can it, or do you use it as bait for bears?
So recycling is a nice term, but we do have a burning barrel. Sorry if anybody doesn't want to like that, but
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
I go to the dump with a minimal amount of stuff about every 6 months. We
Okay.
try not to buy too much glass or metal,
Uh-huh.
a lot of paper things. I also work at a food bank, so give and take. I get a lot of free food.
Yes.
But when the pears are ripe and the apples are ripe and the plums are ripe and the Asian pears are ripe, the coolest thing about that is maybe 3 or 4 boxes of fruit hits the ground. But 3 or 4 neighbors stop in and say, "Hey, what do you got?" It's so good. Like Santa Claus must be had the biggest heart in the world, because it's like, "Come on over. It's gonna fall on the ground. Get some stuff." And that happens a lot, and it's such a good feeling to be able to give. You know. So my garden is probably 20 feet by 100 feet. I probably overplant like 100 squash plants. So even now there's still squash in my garden. It's all rotten because like nobody wants it now. But it's fun to give a wheelbarrow of squash away every couple of days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good feeling to have. Man is nothing without land. That might hit hard, but to me that feels so good if you have land and you're able to produce something and take care of yourself. Maybe they call it a small footprint or green.
Yes.
But
So
it's good.
whereabouts roughly is your property that you bought and you've managed to turn into this amazing homestead?
So in Seattle, go down to Olympia and come up the other side of Hood Canal to Shelton, Washington. And if
Okay.
you went from Shelton towards the ocean, about halfway to the ocean, there's a little town called Matlock. Yeah, cool little town. Yeah, love the school, love the people. Everybody knows everybody. Like if you were in a little school and there's only 3 or 4 seniors and juniors that might be your girlfriend, I'm not going to say interbreeding, but I'm going to say there's a lot of people that are related in Matlock. Yeah. But they're all fantastic people. They kind of, okay, so here's a story. They call it the Matlock Fire Department. Years ago, if they didn't like you, well, your house might have caught on fire. They never lost the foundation yet. How about that? They're good people. And there's no gangs in Matlock. Well, kind of is. There's like girls that go hunting. Would that be a gang? And guys get together and go hunting like high school. Oh yeah, and you pull in the parking lot, and there's guns in all the cars. During hunting season, it's hunting season. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, when we spoke last, you mentioned something that piqued my interest. Someone who lived, I think maybe in the area not too far from you, but John Tornow, I think, is that how you pronounce his name?
Turno.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I got a lot of stories, but that's one I've been working on for 30 years.
You're writing a book, is that right?
Yeah. So it's kind of tough when your best friends have already written books about the guy, but when internet comes out, then it's all of a sudden, the whole wide world, pictures of stories and newspaper articles just come flooding in. So I got interested in the story because it's kind of like a Matlock story where I'm at. Edgar Rice Burroughs came into Aberdeen, 50 miles away in 1909, 1910, 1913, and heard about the wild man that swung from tree to tree, and the law was after him. And he ended up writing a book about Turno. Before he wrote, that was called Tarzan, right? The book he wrote right before Tarzan, okay, one of the titles for John was The Wild Man of the Wynoochee, or John Turno, different things. But anyway, so Edgar Rice wrote a book called The Wild Man of Torn before he wrote Tarzan. And both books kind of came from this one character. So a brief on the man. Turno was a kind of a hermit guy, but he grew up, he actually went to school, and he lived next to a native village. So a lot of this story is coming out now. People don't know that he really went to school and he lived next to a native village. And in our new book, that'll come out.
What kind of year was this that this was happening when he grew up?
So he was born in 1880.
Wow.
He got the German measles, which was called the black measles of death, in 1890. He wasn't expected to live, but by 1900, he had already walked all the way to the coast, like 50-mile trips, and visited Indian villages. And in the logging camps, he was known as the hardest worker there was at 14 or 15 years old. So anyway, his sister, his favorite sister, had two twin boys. And John taught them how to hunt and fish, gave them their first pocket knives, was a huge influence in their wilderness experience. But their dad didn't think that he wanted John to be such a, like his boys were out playing with John. They weren't home working. Anyway, so the boys ended up getting shot. And it was kind of mysterious how they got shot. They got shot right next to one of John's little hermit cabins. So everybody said the wild men must have done it. And within just a very short time, they put up a $5,000 reward, dead or alive. Just go kill him on sight. No trial. They didn't even talk to him. There was no way they could find him because he was on the run because he'd heard they're after me. And
Yeah.
so it's a very complicated story. There's a couple books on it now, Guilty by Circumstance and Beast Man, but ours is going to be called A Silent Witness. And we're going to get into maybe who he was and why things happened and more information about, the realities. And we've all of a sudden got 500 newspaper articles from across the country and Australia, newspaper articles about this guy. We have more photos than anybody's ever seen. So we're actually be able to put people in that time frame and tell the story as accurately as we can. But we don't actually say what happened, because, it's pretty hard to go back and say what happened. But we have a lot of great stories. But
it's hard to be conclusive, that's for sure. So it was a very big news story even at the time, it sounds like.
In 1912, April 16th, the Titanic sank, somewhere right there. Exactly a year later, they shot, 1913, about April 16th, they shot and killed John Turner. Titanic was the biggest story in the world. John Turner in 1913 was the largest story in the world, especially in the nation. Yeah, all over, the biggest story there was. And so we have the proof. We have all the newspaper articles and the photos to prove it. We're gonna tell his story because he never really spoke to anybody. So
yeah, that sounds like a challenge, right? It's someone who was a hermit and probably didn't talk to a whole lot of people.
No, well, we only have one. They did find him one time. A sheriff sat and talked to him for just a small amount of time. They said he's of sound mind, and he says that there's food everywhere and that he loves the wilderness. That's all we know, other than people are going to go kill him.
That's a quote if ever I heard one. Yeah, I guess.
They ended up shooting and killed him, and they tied him up to a tree, and they took photos, and they put him on a stretcher in photos, and, there's probably 30 or 40 photos of him dead.
Wow.
Like Billy the Kid and all the old outlaws where they had some, that was the big thing. Everybody wanted to hear about the wild man being killed.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
You told me last time we spoke that you were carving a tombstone, I think, for him. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So the last fellow that wrote the book, Guilty by Circumstance, anyway, I got the book wrong. Anyway,
No,
Bill
it's okay.
Lindstrom wrote a great book about John Turner. I worked with Bill for probably 30 years on his book. Then the internet came out after he wrote his book. So he was helping me write this book. He passed away with all this knowledge and his research, and he was the editor for the Daily World and Olympian, the Olympian in Aberdeen.
Okay.
Anyway, he was
Is this a
editor.
newspaper? Is that right?
Yeah, newspaper editor.
Okay.
So anyway, he passed away about a few months ago, and so I carved his headstone, and we're going to put it next to John Turner's gravestone in Matlock. And I'm also going to carve my own headstone, but I haven't done it yet. I'm not ready to carve that yet.
Yeah, I guess
future
that's
projects.
Yeah, definitely a future project. Maybe one to push down a bit further, way further in the future.
Well, and just for fun, I'll be 71 here pretty soon.
Yeah.
But my goal is realistically, I want to hit 150. That's my mark.
Great.
150 would be great.
Yeah. Pick a
And I've
number
got
and
a
aim
good
for it.
start. Yeah, that's shoot for the sun and hit the moon. That's okay. So that's my
So,
goal.
yeah. What's your strategy then? What are you thinking
Um,
to hit that goal?
so a lot of knowledge and a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
But I have my own water supply. That's really good water. It comes off the mountain, and I'm in a little valley, and I have hydropower almost. I have solar energy. I eat a lot of wild meats. I have my gardens. But I think the biggest thing, I'm excited about life. I have passion for people. And
Yeah.
if you don't have that, and you just sit on the couch, sorry, you're going to die. You have to get out there and you have to be creative and you have to help people, with their journey. And that really builds you up and gives you whatever they want to call it, endorphins or happy things.
Yeah.
So every day, that's my goal to be there and do that.
That's amazing. It's such a powerful thing keeping that enthusiasm, right? Like
Yeah.
and it's I've got to agree with you in some ways. I think I may be lucky because maybe it's just the way it's my brain is wired.
Hmm.
But sometimes people say like, oh, that I'll be bored or I'll run out of things to do. It's like
Oh, man.
that boggles my mind because it's like it seems like an endless number almost of things that you could do or get interested in or be excited by or people you can meet or stories you can hear. There's so much
Yeah.
out there, isn't there?
I actually have something in my head that says I focus on a point in the future, and that might be a week, or it might be a month, or it might be 6 months out. And every day I'm going through that scenario. I have to make a whole new calendar. I kind of don't trust electronics. I literally write out my calendar for a couple of months, about every 2 or 3 days, and I update it and stuff. Yeah, and with all these goals and things, and also it's like, who do you spend your time with?
Yeah.
That is critical, and who inspires you to be better? Who inspires you to be crazy and wild? Get somebody that, pushes you or pulls you. That's the way life should be all the time. When we're teenagers, I think we've got a lot of that going, but we're not smart enough to figure out what's good and bad for us. But if we can figure that out when we're a little older, yeah.
That's so true, right? Like it's figuring out people that maybe aren't that helpful or aren't that good an influence in your life is definitely a big
Oh,
learning
yeah.
curve when you're younger.
Yeah, and when you have 500 friends that you literally just want to run and literally give them a hug and almost cry, like, I love you. Those are good words. That happens a lot.
Yeah. Cool. So,
This is this is my wife here.
wow. Your hunting buddy. I like the title as well.
Yeah.
That's good. It seems like you have some common interests right there.
Hmm.
A question I wanted to ask you, you said that you always trying to be positive and push positivity out into the world. Is there anything that you do as an exercise or is there anything you do as a conscious choice? Or, I mean, I wonder, like, I mean, for me, I started meditating about 10 years ago as a thing to try and build some of that positivity in my own journey, I guess, is a way of saying that in a kind of soppy way of saying it. But is there anything that you consciously do, or is it just inbuilt in your brain?
Uh, so for many years, I would think about, my years later in life, what I'm going to do later. I actually contemplated that a lot. And then as I was going to work each day, I would say, why don't I just stop right here and turn my car around and get out and say, yes, the sun is shining and I'm going to go to work and then I'm going to go home and stuff. But now it's different. I can get up in the morning and I don't have to go to work. I'm kind of my own boss, and every day's Saturday. And so that drives me now. It's like I'm going to trick myself or force myself, or I'm going to love myself into just being wild and crazy and learning and going. And so I don't know. Sometimes I say that's a trick, but if you do that enough, it becomes a lifestyle too. And I like pushing myself that way.
Yeah. Well, there's that old experiment, right? If you are feeling bad or sad or grumpy, but you make your face smile, you actually start to feel happy. And that's
Yeah.
kind of interesting, isn't it? That like your physicality somehow is influenced by emotion, or the other way around, right? Emotion is influenced by the way that you move your body. We always think that, oh, I feel this way, therefore I'm going to act this way. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Absolutely. My father, he also taught restaurant training in schools. I never saw a single day where my father was upset or mad. Never. It was such a good influence on me. Couple quick stories.
Yes.
We, I don't know, we're young. We're like 8, 9, and 10, my brothers and and I think I was the one that took the package of cigarettes that were opened on his dresser and went out in the woods, and we were going to see what these were, because my dad, he smoked 3 packs a day.
Wow.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden we're lighting this up and we each got a puff, and it was terrible. And he, like the aliens showed up, boom, he was there. And he didn't even say anything, except he said he wanted to see that package of cigarettes. And he says, "This is the last pack of cigarettes I will ever smoke. I love you, boys." And then we know he bought another pack and he put it in his shirt pocket. And he wore that shirt with that package of cigarettes in the pocket for a long time. It was like a security blanket. But he quit that day from 3 packs a day. Yeah, and it was such an influence on us. But he said so many things. He said, one of the things he said is, if you walk into a room with 12 depressed people that are hurting, just don't be the 13th. Don't be that one. If you can go in there and intentionally make a few smile and laugh, you've won. That's what life's about. He was a good man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about your memories of your dad, in the sense that you said he was very successful in the food, like preparing food. He was a chef, right?
He never graduated high school either.
So it's interesting you say that he was so positive, because there is I guess a cliche about how kitchens are, commercial kitchens being cutthroat places, super aggressive and stressful environments. Did you learn? Yeah, did you learn from him? Did he teach you some things, or was that later on?
So in Seattle, that was the base for the Washington State Chefs Association. He was the president of the Washington State Chefs Association for many years. He was probably on the board of directors for 50 years for this. And he worked his way up to the National Chefs Hall of Fame, inducted into the National Chefs Hall of Fame with Julia Childs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many things. But he started off by not graduating high school, went into the military. They gave him 2 choices. They said, you're going to be a doctor or a cook. And that's it. You had to go, like, you're a doctor or a cook. That's it, he said. And he was terrible at school. And he said at that moment, he says, I'm going to make something of my life, because he played hooky a lot, never went to school, didn't graduate. And so he really couldn't take very good notes. So he drew pictures every day in a structure or a lesson. He would redraw it and make it. He was kind of artist too. And he would write it in his own words that were simple. And he would rewrite it, and he would go home and he would rewrite it. And after his whole schooling for being a chef, they fired the teacher and made him the instructor. And he was the youngest instructor ever at Fort Lewis, teaching restaurant training to the new classes coming in. It was such a wonderful thing. Yeah, and so many stories. The commander of Fort Lewis at the time, and General Mark Clark came in congratulated my dad for being the youngest instructor Fort Lewis ever had. I think he was 19 years old. So the admiral or the corporal of Fort Lewis said, "Daryl, you're such a great chef. I want you to be my personal chef." And then he said, "And I want your wife to be my maid. You guys don't have to do any work." And he goes, "You are not going to make my wife a maid." And anyway, he was shipped to Japan the next day from being the greatest chef. And he was on a ship the next day to Japan without his wife.
Wow.
So,
Crikey.
but
How long was he in Japan for?
A couple of years, I think. But when he got back, he went to Edison Tech, which is now Seattle Central Community College, and he started going to culinary school, and he actually organized his own culinary, what would it be, class. And from there, they started the Washington State Chefs Association. So he was one of the original people that started that. And then they started the American Culinary Federation. He was one of the first people in that. And he ended up being the historian for the whole United States of America for culinary arts.
Wow.
Yeah. So but he never graduated high school. And
do you remember any specific lessons that he taught you about around food?
He said there's 27 different ways to make clam chowder. And that's a big thing. But he says, you like this much salt or that much salt. You like green peppers. You like this. You like this. How much potatoes? He says cooking is not quite a science. It's more of a love of foods. And he says baking is a science. You got to be pretty accurate with baking. But cooking was just, you can play with cooking.
Yeah.
And then I grew up with that, and my first job was in restaurants, and then I was a Washington Plaza Hotel apprentice pastry chef for about 3 years, and then I was on King 5 Broadcasting, a private chef for them, and then I was George Warehouser's chef, and then went into restaurant training myself, and I had a blast with that. That was the best part of cooking, is teaching kids how to cook.
Yeah.
Had fun. Did that for 20 years.
So something else you mentioned, when did you start gold mining in the Yukon?
Oh, so when I graduated high school, my dad being the chef's president for Washington State, they had a lawyer, and the lawyer had two friends that were doing what they called assessment work up in the Yukon in a gold mine. And they had to do so much work to be able to keep the claim. It was it was in British Columbia.
Okay.
And they had to do so much work per year. And if they had two young, hardworking high school kids, they could have, chalk down more hours. So, oh man, yeah, from wanting to be in the wilderness to actually getting on in a truck and driving, a couple thousand miles up north, and then we get to this place and we got to get in this little buggy and go overland and almost starve to death. And we lived with wolves and caribous and mined gold and jade for about 3 months and never saw any people.
Wow.
It was great. Yeah.
So I guess you had to hunt food to stay out there that long. You didn't have supplies for that long, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I still have the newspaper article. The mining people said that we could harvest our own game as long as we didn't waste it. Well, The game people said, no, you can't. And then maybe they didn't get along well. But anyway, we shot a moose, and it lasted for a long time. We kept it in the creek in burlap bags of rocks over it. But then the game department came in and said, no, you can't do that, and fined $600.
No.
Yeah, and they had a controversy on anyway. But yeah, we found 3 ounces of gold nuggets in one day one time.
Wow.
We found jade was everywhere, like huge chunks of jade. And it was, at that time of my life, it was probably the greatest thing I'd ever done. My brother and 2 65-year-old men, we thought they were ancient, but they were pretty smart woodsmen. But we were so far out that it took us, I think, 4 or 5 days to get in there, and I thought we were going to die because we thought it was only going to be 50 miles, we had these little four-wheel drive vehicles that could go 50 miles an hour. So they thought, oh, one day. But yeah, so when all the tires popped in first day, we had to go walking.
No.
Uh, yeah, and we had to go a long ways, and there was kind of no trail. We just had to go towards the mountain. I can remember the sun never set, right? I can remember walking and walking and walking, and I know it was late, whether it was 1 in the morning or 3 in the morning, but I just at one point dropped to my knees and fell forward, like you'd imagine a person dying. And I don't know when I woke up, but I woke up and I was in like just watery mud. I didn't even know it. I was so out of it. And then I got up and stepped going again, like I should have died. And then I came up to one hill and I could see over the hill into a valley. Very spiritual thing. There was a rainbow that came down and it hit this one spot. And the message was, that's the spot. I found it. I found it. Whether I was delirious or not, I came back and I said, I found it. And yeah, so we proceeded on, and that's right where this cabin was we were looking for. Maybe that saved our lives, but we hadn't eaten in 5 days, and, we were probably delirious, but it worked. Whatever it was, it worked,
Well,
It's changed my life. Another thing that changed my life, when I came out of there, I was really shy before I went in. And now I can look people in the eye and say, I love you, and I can give them hugs. I couldn't do that before. I love people now. I want to know all about them. They're amazing, and they're beautiful, and yeah, I want to know everything about them.
so what do you think changed in those 3 months that you were there? Was it the people that you were with, or was it the isolation, or what happened?
Totally, the isolation did it. I want to do a lone show for the isolation. I want to do it because it's a test of my own life. Like if you could go, I hated tests in school, but I want to go on a test now. I want to go so bad. And if, things don't work out, that's okay. You take the test. I want to take a test.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
Because, I mean, there's things to learn,
isolation
right?
does stuff.
Whatever happens.
Yeah. And learning experience.
Sorry, you were saying isolation does stuff.
Yeah. Who are you? Are you what you think you are? Are you what other people think you are? Are you trying to put on a mask? When you're in isolation and you just got you and, you got birds and you got trees and stuff, I think that's what's good about nature. It kind of tells you the truth. And the truth is so important. And to be able to have that base of what's important and what is truth, that'll change you.
And so interesting, I had a conversation, which I think will probably be live by the time this episode has gone out, but with Wyatt from Alone,
Yeah.
Wyatt Black. And he said that his, you're alone and there's nothing to distract you from your thoughts, right? Your memories, your feelings. And that's some pretty powerful stuff that you've got to wrestle with.
Yeah. Like I say, I probably have 20 good friends on the Alone Show. I love hearing their stories. Carrie Lee is one of my best friends. Yeah, it's so good to hear their struggles, and they found out about themselves, and their limits, their challenges. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think obviously it's not exactly the same thing, but I can really relate to what you're saying. I started this podcast, I don't know, a bit more than 2 years ago. And I was excited to learn more about this whole area and the skills and the people and the stories and the community. And the community has been wonderful. I want to add that first of all. But the thing that kind of caught me by surprise is the lessons. The amount that I feel like I've learned and grown from people's stories, right? Like they're so powerful. All these different experiences that people have had all over the world.
And you want to share them.
Right? In the wilderness.
Yeah.
It's incredible how that can influence you. So, yeah, that's a really powerful thing, which caught me by surprise.
So a couple other things. The Pacific Northwest Survival Games. That's a big one in my life right now, too.
Yeah.
And I'm going on a 3-day survival, kind of nomadic links trek in April again, for just 3 days with a really good group. Joel Vanderloon might be on that one.
Okay,
Uh,
cool.
Nicole, Nicole from Lone Show might be on that one. But
Appelian.
there's only going to be, yeah, maybe only 7 or 8 people on that. It's going to be great. But yeah, I've had a chance for the last 2 years to work with Biko Wright and EJ Snyder, Naked and Afraid, and Terry Lee, and a lot of really good people on the Pacific Northwest survival games. That's been just a kick in the beep. Yeah, it's been so awesome. Love it.
So tell me about that then. How long has it been going for?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3. We just had the 3rd year, so the 4th year is coming. And Biko is the one that told me about it in the beginning, and he's just a character. I love that man. But basically, it's like Forged in Fire, where you have the skills, and they kind of outline the skills, and they tell you about it, and you got to do the skill. But at the same time, the Forged in Fire has the judges or the trainers. Well, we're kind of like that, but we're also like Alone in a little bit, where the skills are just not knife making. It's just a whole gamut of skills, of all the outdoor skills, you know. So we come on, it might be 2 or 3 of us as judges, instructors, and we teach a skill, and then for half an hour, then they have an hour to create the skill or make the bow or make the arrows or make a fire making thing. And then they kind of for an hour, and then for another, I think 45 minutes to an hour, they get to either accomplish it, like making fire, but it gets way more complicated than that. For instance, they learn about, one of the things I did was a bow. It's a bow drill, but it's a fire making one. Well, I've created a coal in 20 seconds before. And out of the 50 teams that did it with good instructions, only one team was able to make fire. And so in the last second, they resorted to a ferro rod. But before the instruction, it was a setup. We had these huge tanks of ice water. They had to actually submerge themselves in the ice water for up to 2 or 3 minutes, get out, and then have to make fire. You know, because the reality is, you're not making fire in the desert on a 120-degree day. You're cold and you're shivering and stuff. So that was one test where they, ice water, create fire, and they had to run their fire up and light a torch. Oh man, yeah. But imagine 6 or 7 of those competitions going on for the weekend, and really good teams. So I gotta say that I taught my kids pretty well. And my son Ian and his wife won it the year before. Now they came out number 1. And then my son Ian's wife couldn't make this time, so my son Ian and my grandson Theron, they won it this last year. So then they said, Ian, you're pretty tough to beat. Why don't you be one of the judges on our next show? So now, yeah. So.
What did he think? Cool. He liked keeping on winning.
he wanted to keep on winning, but he knew the writing was on the wall that, now he's an official judge, so it's cool. And he is so smart. He's been and done about everything. He's kind of like a mini me, but like plus, everything else. Yeah, him and my son Chris went from Washington to Nevada about 6-8 years ago, and I was in the back seat and they were in the front seat. They talked about reloading for 8 hours straight without one Imagine what kind of knowledge you got to have to talk about reloading for 8 hours straight in a car. I couldn't talk a word. From
that kind of
humidity, MilDOT, Barnes bullets, brass, every single thing you can think of, Yeah, they love their guns.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And one of the things that I instilled in them is when they were big enough to hold a gun, if they were 3 or 4 years old, they had their own guns. but I never gave them a bullet. You know, if you don't give them a bullet, you know, they can walk around, go where they want. They can go hiking and stuff, but they had to practice gun safety for years.
Yes.
When they finally got that bullet, well, they didn't even want to shoot the bullet. They were waiting for their perfect target. You know, yeah, now they have so much stuff. They got more than any gun store, probably. And they're good shots. Like my son Ian, I think he shot a antelope at 1,200 yards, and my son Chris is working on the mile shot. You know, that kind
Wow.
of stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Have they ever been
Yeah.
tempted to do that? What's that competition called? I think it's called King of 2 Mile. Is that what it is? Where there's like a
Wow.
2 mile shot competition somewhere. I can't remember where it is, but it's like a
Wow.
multiple long range shots. But the guys that do that, they have to have like completely specialized rifles, like
Oh,
all
yeah.
kinds of stuff. Yeah, it's a completely different beast. I wanted to ask you, so you have a nickname, right?
Yeah.
But it's changed. It used
That's
to
an
be dangerous.
evolution.
Yeah. So it used to be dangerous, right? If
Yeah.
I'm understanding
Yeah.
correctly. So
Yeah.
you said something to me before that stuck in my mind. So it used to be called Dangerous Dan, if I'm right
Yeah.
understanding that. But that was when you said you were at a wildlife park or something. Was that were
So
you
in
working at a
Washington
wildlife
State,
park?
it's almost like Jurassic Park. They have what's called, sorry, Northwest Trek. And it's a wilderness park, and the animals, you know, like the wild goats are up on the little mountain, and the buffalo are down in the field, and the elk are here, and the moose are in the swamp. And they kind of have their own areas, but they have the wolves caged off and the cougars caged off, right? But you got this little tram goes around like Jurassic Park. And then they have, you know, concession stands and the main entries. Well, I went there a couple of times, and I thought, well, this is really cool. I want to get in for free. I could walk in there with my Mountain Man stuff on and say, hey, do you mind if I come in here and talk to people about the Mountain Man stuff? I think I was only 19 years old. And yeah, oh, that's a great idea. So they made up a flyer, and they had on the loudspeaker, Dana Anderson going to be here talking about the Mountain Men. You know, by the second time that happened, they said, well, you got to have a name, you know. So I go, well, how about Dangerous Dan the Mountain Man? Oh, that's great. So I went by Dangerous Dan the Mountain Man at Northwest Trek for a while, and that was so fun. But after a while, you know, people are saying, grandmas are asking me, why are you so dangerous? You know, and so I thought a lot about that. And so, you know, I knew quite a bit about native cultures and vision quests and different things. And so I set apart to go up in the mountains and, you know, like, what about this dangerous thing? So about 3 days later, I'm sitting there and, you know, I hadn't eaten anything, and I kind of look at stuff, and an eagle flies over, you know, and I go, oh, that's awesome. That's it. You know, and then a while later, oh, is that it? And then I contemplated on that, and all of a sudden, my name wasn't Dangerous Dan. It was Eagle Who Speak. Sometimes I'm kind of reserved, but then I was thinking, well, sometimes I'm pretty goofy, talking bird. So if you can imagine Eagle Who Speak in a line, talking bird, blah, blah, blah. My wife says, put the talking bird away sometimes. Yeah. So it was about 4 or 5 years after that, you know, alone show projects and stuff. You know, and in my heart, I'm kind of native, but I'm not native. I don't have a drop of native on me. And so I have a good friend, Jessica Caldwell, who says, well, you might want to think about that native name. You're not native. And so I did another vision quest, and yeah, I'm kind of just wild. So
Yeah.
from Dangerous Dan the Mountain Man became Wild Mountain Man Dan. Dan. And that's the way it's been. So you'll find me on Wild Mountain Man Dan Instagram, but Dana Anderson for Facebook. And I love the name because that's going to be my name for a long time. But in the native cultures, you had different names for different events and different names for different times. You know, if you got married, you might have had a different name, and in the end of your life, you had a different name for different reasons. But yeah, kind of a focus, wild
Yeah,
mountain man.
definitely,
That's
definitely.
where I'm at right now. A little
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
wild.
So you mentioned before that you've had a few, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, and maybe this is an element where you are maybe dangerous and wild. You've had a few close calls in your life, near-death
Oh,
experiences, or things that where we went a bit dicey. Can you think of any that you'd like to share?
you mean about the time I almost died a few times? But
Exactly.
about I have a good friend. I go help her out once in a while. She's one of my big inspirations. She said, "Hey, can you come over and take a tree out?" Sure. I cut the tree out and cut it up. It was great. So it exposed another smaller tree, probably about an 8-inch one, fir tree, and it was right up against another big fir tree, probably 2.5 foot across. So I can remember starting up the chainsaw to cut this little tree down, and everything past that, I don't remember. She says
Really?
what happened is that I cut the tree down, and as it came down, there was a branch about another 6 or 8 inches across, heavy, you know, a 40-pounder that was 50 feet in the air. And when this little one came out, it was holding that branch up, and it fell, and it literally hit me in the head. But she couldn't see that. All she knew is she turned around, and I'm on the ground, and you know, I'm a jokester all the time, and I'm always playing jokes. You know, be careful about that. You know, don't cry wolf stuff. But when she said, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? What's going on?" and she looked, and I was covered in blood. The tree had literally scalped me and took most of the scalp off the side of my head and flopped it over,
Wow.
yeah, into and I was unconscious, except I guess I was in babbling just a little bit of a murmur. And she got me up, got me to her porch. That's all I know is about a half an hour later, I came to, almost like a light went on. Like I'm sitting there. I know I'm sitting there because I'm sitting there when I woke up. But I didn't have my eyes closed, and people were talking to me. But it's all of a sudden I realized, like in a flash, like, hey, what are you guys doing here? You know, it's EMTs and all this stuff going on. And I see all this blood and everything. But yeah, I lost about 30 minutes of my life, and I kind of don't know what happened. But then I
Wow.
started telling jokes, and yeah, and I'm in the ambulance telling jokes and telling stories, and it's like, you know, all this stuff. And Billy, you got to settle down. You're hurt bad, you know. And yeah, so they hooked me up to all these managers and say, "Man, you have a hard head." I go, "Okay." And so I'm telling jokes, and all my family come in. They want to know if I'm dead yet. And, no, I'm not dead yet. Anyway, it's a great experience. So yeah,
How
I've had
long
a
did it
few
take
other.
you? How long did it take you to recover?
I want to take my own stitches out at 4 days, but my wife said, "No, you can't take your stitches out." And I was just, yeah, from then on, you know, from the time I hit the ambulance, I was telling jokes and stuff. I've never, I recovered from that moment. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
you
I
felt
lost a half an hour, but yeah.
you got a story though.
But, you know, that's part of also being happy is knowing that you could go at any moment. What would you do with your last day? If you had your last hour, what would you do with it? Would you be like that movie February 2nd or Groundhog's Day and just be wild? Or would you come back to your senses and just want to just help people and give people and make people happy? Would you do that in your last day? That's where I'm at. It's
Yeah,
good. Good stuff.
yeah. I mean, I think it's another thing, right? Like part of being connected with nature, and this is from the experience of learning these skills more and more the last 5, 6 years, being far more connected with the wilderness and taking lives and eating meat and foraging, being much closer to mortality makes it less scary as an idea. At least I've found.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing to fear except fear itself. You know, like pretty famous quote.
Yeah,
It's true. Uh,
yeah.
and the more you learn about something, I've had two other of my children die too. So that's pretty. You know, some people would go, wow, that's sad, but one of them was Sid's death, and a little 2-month-old baby, little David. And, you know, I was driving 100 miles an hour to try to get to the scene, but when I was there, a pretty religious fellow. Well, people think I'm kind of crazy, but I'm pretty religious. Within just a few moments, I was good. You know, everything was good. And then one of my daughters passed away due to a medication problem. And, you know, I know she's in a better spot. I feel really sad for people that don't have those, something inside of them that says, you know, there's good out there. You know, just be patient and hard work, you know, and you might not ever see it in this lifetime, but yeah, it'll work out.
Yeah.
So it's good.
You managed to maintain an optimism through lots of difficult things, which is really impressive, I have to say. And
Yeah.
an inspiration. How do you, what would you give as advice then if people are finding their circumstances difficult? What would you say is a way of helping in some capacity?
Help somebody else that's less fortunate. You know, if I know another story about a guy, two shoe salesmen that go to Australia, and one guy reports back into the boss, man, like there's no hope. They don't even wear shoes. And the other guy comes back in, he goes, oh my goodness, you wouldn't believe it. They don't even wear shoes. Just think of the possibilities. You know, it's just, it's outlook. You know, it's like, what do you focus on? Yeah, take care of yourself. You know, like maybe a little too much this or too much that could alter your, you know, your state of mind. And yeah, just be good to yourself and have patience and hard work and have lots of friends.
Yeah.
And then have some friends that are like the most special. You can really communicate with them. It's so good to be close to someone.
Yeah. And also nature as well, I guess, is the other thing, right?
Yeah, got to get outdoors.
I've been sick the last 10 days or so, and I haven't been able to get out as much. And it really changes the way you think about things, you know? It's, yeah, it's interesting. I was kind of realized I need to get out in the woods. I need to be out there and
So I live in the woods. I live
Yeah.
off grid. My own water supply, most of my own food and stuff. I think I got, you know, the flu or got sick once or twice in my lifetime. I don't hardly ever get sick. Yeah. And my wife says, oh, make sure you wash your hands and all this stuff. And, oh, don't pick that up. And I go, hey, who's the one that gets sick? I don't get sick. Okay, knock on wood. All right. But yeah, I'm pretty healthy.
Yeah. Long may it continue. You've been, so I was thinking we can probably wrap up soon, but you've been holding this picture for a while. And I want to ask you, what is this picture? So it's two kids holding rifles. It looks like an older photo.
So the 30-30 is my grandfather's 30-30. And then the other one is a muzzleloader flintlock pistol I built. And at the time, my oldest son had shot this deer. I took this photo, and I love photos. And that's my two oldest boys, and we're out deer hunting. And yeah, and I think they're, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I started them young. But I got lots of pictures. My son Ian, a cougar that he took.
Wow. Yeah. That's a big
elk
cougar.
that he took. You might want to talk to Ian.
Yeah, definitely.
Elk my daughter Amy got. Yeah. It's been a good life. Thank you, Robin.
Oh, thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks for sharing your stories today. And if at some point you are finishing up your book and you want to talk about it more, I would love to have you on to tell more of the stories that are in there, get people tempted to come and read more of the book.
See if any more trees have tackled me down or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. If you get hit by
The Wild Man of the Wainuchi. That's the book I'm reading.
Perfect.
But it's
Perfect.
called A Silent Witness. So it'll be out.
Okay. And yeah, do you know roughly when it might be out, or it's still an ongoing project and you'll be ready to bang the drum when it's ready?
My assistant writer and I have been working hard on it for at least 6-7 years. And now we have another person that's helping with this. So 3 of us working on it. And I still think we've got to create some maps, and you have to identify exactly where the photo came from. So it could be a couple years out, but I hope I see you before then. Hey, come to some gatherings. You'll love them.
I will for sure. Is there, so I think you already mentioned your Instagram, but
Yes. Wild Mountain Man Dan. Yeah, you'll have to watch it again because it'll make you laugh and cry, and there's some, life on there.
There is for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you again. And
Thank you.
I will speak to you sometime, hopefully soon.
Thanks.
Right. That's another episode napped to a fine point and perfected. Thank you again, Mountain Man Dan. That was amazing. Thank you for sharing your time, your stories, your family members to be guests. It seems like there are an endless number of people who Dan's willing to recommend, which is endlessly helpful for getting great guests on this podcast. So thank you for that, Dan. Once again, thank you to everyone for listening. If you're still here, I'm going to take that as a good sign. Amazing if you could give us a follow or a subscribe. And if you're really enjoying the stuff, then a 5-star review goes a long way, as I said before. We have some great episodes in the pipeline coming up, but that's all from me for now. Thanks for listening, and until next time.
Welcome to the Wild Dispatch.